welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome. If this is your first time here, please kindly click on the subscribe button as well as on the notification button just so you're aware whenever I post a YouTube video. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your support. I truly appreciate you guys. Anyway, so today I will be continuing on my wedding planning series that I started. I already have the part 1 up, which is just here. If you go click on this link here. In the part 1, I basically talk about things to expect when you're planning a wedding in Nigeria. And I talked basically out of experience, and especially for someone who had a wedding during the pandemic. These are just things that you should be aware of, very important things that I think that you should be aware of if you're planning a wedding in Nigeria. And this part, which is the part 2 of the series, is going to talk about venue as well as church. So this part will talk about things that you should consider when you're trying to pick a venue. At least these were the things that I looked at when I tried picking a venue in Nigeria for my wedding. Okay, let's dive straight into this. So first things first is pick your venue ahead of time. And the reason why I say this is that in Nigeria, for some reason, venues get fully booked. And depending on when you want to have your wedding, it is going to be a factor in regards to how fast venues get booked in Nigeria. In my case, we had a December wedding. And for some reason in Nigeria, December is always fully booked. Venues are always fully occupied, so it's very important that you book your venue way ahead of time. So one of the things that you should consider when you're trying to book your venue ahead of time is when you're planning on having your wedding in the year and the kind of wedding you're planning on having. So is it going to be an outdoor venue or is it going to be an indoor venue? So those are the 2 things you should consider when you're trying to book your venue ahead of time. So in my situation, we use the Mackay, at least in Benin, Nigeria, Edo State, Nigeria, where I come from. That's what it's called. We use the Mackay, and it's an indoor venue. We had our wedding in December, so it was something that we had to do way ahead of time because venues were fully booked. Like I said, we had a December wedding, and I remember for our wedding, when we went to the venue, someone else had already picked the date, but because we paid like immediately, we were opportune to use that venue. Like, we're the lucky ones to use the venue. So in other words, plan ahead of time. Like, know the kind of venue you're going to use so you can book it way ahead of time because it's going to get fully booked. And have your cash ready. This is why I'm having this as a part 2, because part 1 kind of sets the base here and part 2 just builds on what it is that I talked about in the part 1. So have your money ready just so you're able to pay for things on the spot that you really require. For example, wedding venue. As long as you're sure of the venue and you've made the decision that this is the venue that you want, it's usually advisable that you book your venue way ahead of time. Okay, so that's number 1. Book it way ahead of time. We booked our own a year before and we still almost had struggles with it because someone else also wanted the same venue at the same time, the same date and everything, but because we paid first, we had the venue. So book ahead of time. Number 2, hey, consider the inflation of price in things in Nigeria. And this is going to apply to your venue too, as well as other things as I discussed in the part 1 of the series. You have to plan for this because in Nigeria, they're going to blame the increase in price on everything on dollar as well as the current pandemic going on. In my situation, we paid for our venue, like I said, a year before our wedding, and like 2 or 3 months, 2 months even before the wedding, they messaged us saying, if we now still want this venue, you guys have to come pay an extra 100k, or like, diesel prices increase. You guys know we have to run gen all through, so you guys have to pay extra money to it. So guys, we had to pay extra money for our venue. Even though we had agreed on the price we had paid, we still had to pay an extra 100k for the venue. So in other words, there is inflation of prices of things in Nigeria right now. And for some reason, December weddings, like I said, it gets fully booked. The pricing of the halls and the Mackays are for, I don't know, they're always ridiculously high in that December period. So if you are not keen on having your wedding in December, this might be a cue for you to, figure out when things are a little bit, you know, cheaper or more affordable in the year for you to have your wedding in Nigeria. And it's very competitive in the sense that because everybody wants that venue, they really would not push you too much. Like if you don't pay, they give it to the next person on the list. So that's pretty much it. The price of things are high. It is gonna be inflated right now, especially during the pandemic, but be wise. If you're able to get referrals, if you're able to get discounts, if you're able to get promotion, if you're able to get gifts, if you know someone that has a good venue that's able to give it to you for an affordable price, please utilize all of these things just so you don't pay through your bum for a wedding venue. So that's another point that you should be aware of. Number 3, after you've decided that you're having your wedding on whatever month it is that you pick, and you decide on the kind of venue that you want, another factor that you should consider when you're trying to figure out what venue you want is the location, as well as the accessibility to your home and to your church and back to the venue itself. So in my case, my venue was in GRA and my church was in GRA. So it was literally on the airport road in GRA, Benin City, Nigeria. So the distance was just perfect. So I live in GRA. So from my house to the venue wasn't far at all. From my house to church wasn't too bad either. And from church to the venue wasn't bad at all. So it was really like in the same vicinity. So it wouldn't make sense for you to live in maybe, where in Benin now do I know? For you to live in Ekenwa, or not even Ekenwa, for you to live in Ugbowo and be having your wedding in GRA and be having your venue in GRA, it doesn't make sense because it means that you have to pass through that Uselu and Ugbowo, you know, traffic and all of that before you get to the venue. Or you're having your wedding or you live in GRA and you're having your wedding in some other part of the city. In my case, I live in GRA, my church itself is in GRA and the venue was in GRA. So it wasn't hard at all to, like, you know, move from my house to the venue or from the venue to church or from church to the venue. So another thing that you should consider when you're trying to pick a venue is the location as well as the accessibility. So when you've decided that you're having your wedding at so and so month or on so and so day, you're having an indoor or outdoor wedding, the next thing you should figure out is, what is the location? Is it going to be easy for you to get to? Is it close to your hotel? Like literally everything for me was in GRA. Like my hotel was in GRA, my house in GRA, my church was in GRA, and the venue itself was in GRA. So it wasn't hard because I had to consider the photographer and the videographer and consider the distance, even for the makeup artist to consider the distance from, you know, where they would all be navigating through. So try to consider that when you're picking a venue for your wedding. Another thing that you should consider is the space, your flavor, what kind of venue. Like we talked about indoor, outdoor. Then the next thing is, does the venue really speak to you? And is the spacing what you require? Because in Nigeria, at least in Benin where I come from, most of the times they do venues by capacity. Some venues are like 200 capacity, 400, 800, 1000, 12 capacity. So it depends on how many people that you're expecting. Me, I am Kukuma, the first pikin of my house. I'm the first daughter of my parents and the first child of my parents. So obviously, we knew it was going to be a big wedding. My husband equally is the first child of his parents, and so we knew it was going to be a big wedding. So we went for a venue that had lots of space in, and my parents pretty much know everybody, so we knew that. In fact, it wasn't even us, like our friends per se. I know my husband has lots of friends, but it wasn't even like us per se. It was like our parents, and I would say my husband too, because he too knows plenty people. Like the venue was filled with lots of his people too. Yeah. Point of what I'm saying is that consider the number of people that you're expecting to your wedding and know the kind of spacing that you want and your flavor too. Like if the venue speaks to you or if it doesn't speak to you. Like for us, I think if you guys haven't watched the video, I'll put the link here. When we're trying to pick things, the first venue was a venue that really spoke to me in terms of the flavor. It had like the golden everything. It was really cute. The tables, the chairs were really cute, but it didn't have other things that I wanted in terms of spacing, security, parking, and all of those things. While the venue we eventually went for, and again, the flavor was all right, but the major thing is that it had the spacing. We had to compromise too in terms of like the flavor and all of that. It had the spacing, it was more affordable, it had security and all of those things, right? So anyways, that brings me to my next point here, which is security and parking. Guys, hey, in Nigeria, you need a venue that is secure. You don't want people's cars getting missing or the accessories getting missing. You don't want someone to, after your wedding, they'll not be like, that one, now where did I thief my phone? You don't want something like that, guys. Or they will say, now where did I thief my Toyota? You don't want something like that. So you want a venue that is extremely secure, as well as has enough parking, so that people are not parking in a distant location and trekking to your wedding. I absolutely do not like that. When I go for people's wedding and I have to go look for parking elsewhere because they don't have parking, then I have to walk with my heels. I absolutely do not like that. So for my wedding, we made sure that we had enough parking and people didn't have to start trekking. We made sure that the venue itself was secure. Like, our venue itself was extremely secure. Like, there was even airport security. There was like everybody, Air Force security was there. Like, everybody was there, including our own like security too. The point of what I'm saying is that it was extremely secure and we had lots of parking in the venue itself. So you didn't have to like start trekking from another place to the wedding. You could just park your vehicle and just hop into the marquee. So it was really like convenient for our guests in terms of like security and parking. People didn't have to worry about their vehicles. People didn't have to worry about things getting lost. They didn't have to worry about anything. So guys, make sure that your venue is secure and make sure that there's lots of parking when you're trying to pick a venue for your wedding, especially in Nigeria. You have to make sure that it's secure and there's lots of parking, guys. You don't want your guest stuff getting missing. So yeah. The last but not the least when it comes to venue is ensuring there's air conditioner. Yes, air conditioner, because there's some weddings where the air conditioner for some reason will go faulty halfway through the wedding, or you go there and you are fanning yourself, you are carrying your fan and like, you know, fanning yourself so you don't go down of heat. Your gele sweat is falling through your makeup and everything. You don't want something like that for your guests, guys. Nigeria is hot, and in December it is hot. It is not, I don't think Harmattan even happens in Nigeria anymore, at least in Benin or where I come from. Like when I had my wedding, it wasn't like Harmattan. I didn't feel any Harmattan per se. It was more like it was extremely hot. So I was grateful that our venue, that was one of the things we asked them, like, hope your air conditioner would not fail us and hope there's backup generator so that there is no excuses whatsoever. So you don't want your guests sweating. You don't want to be sweating when you're dancing. You don't want any of those inconvenience for your guests. You want them to chop their Chinese, chop their jollof rice and swallow properly and drink their palm wine properly without, you know, sweating. Let them be chopping life and be enjoying. At least in my wedding, that's what it was, right? Like, we ensured that there was air conditioner and there was a generator like all through, because in Nigeria there's still no lights, there is no electricity. So make sure your venue has generator and make sure that they have good functioning air conditioners. Yes guys, it is important, very important. Okay guys, so that's pretty much it when it comes to venue. Now I'm just gonna dive straight into church. So guys, me, I am Christian, I'm Catholic per se, so that's why I'm saying church. So if you're Muslim and you have to get wedded in the mosque, I'm not too sure what the procedure is with that, but I would advise that it's something that you look into just so you ensure that you're doing everything correctly before your wedding day. So in my case, I'm Christian, I'm Catholic, so it might apply to some other people that are Christians here. You don't have to be necessarily Catholic, so it might apply to you. Things that you should be aware of when you're trying to pick your date for your wedding. So depending on your faith, like I said before, religion, try to follow up with your church, guys, because there's gonna be things like, in my case though, there were things like having to do medical tests, having to bring your registry. So most people don't know, at least for us, I didn't even know that you had to like be married in the court first and present your registry before you can get married in church. So there are things like that that you have to be aware of, like medical testing. They're going to do all sorts of tests to ensure that, you know, everybody is good. They'll do HIV tests, a couple of other tests. I don't have to go into details on this. They'll do testing. There's the registry piece I talked about. You have to also pick a date and ensure that other people are not in that same date. So for Catholics, we have different masses. So in my case, I picked my date a year even before my wedding. And even when I picked my date, I think I was even very lucky because the mass I wanted, because it was a year before, it was still open. So I could figure out like, oh, I want this mass, I want that mass. So our father was really amazing. Shout out to you, Father, if you're watching this. He was really amazing. So we picked, I think it was 10 a.m. we picked. He even helped us in picking. Because when I was like, I think I want so and so time. And he's like, Madam, usually you have your makeup and everything though, or, you know, when we're like later, no, it will be too late, or, you know, people will start waiting on the reception, you know, things like that. So we had that flexibility because we did it ahead of time. So in other words, when you're trying to pick a date, there's going to be some factors that you consider before you pick a date. For us, because we picked it very early, we had that flexibility and we were able to pick the one that we wanted. I don't know how it works in Pentecostal churches, if they have different masses, if they have different services, but for us, because we have different masses, they're able to accommodate more people. And for my church, because I came quite early, I had the opportunity to do my wedding in the main church, which I wanted. So there's some people that because they don't come early, they'll have to move to another, it's still in the same church, it's just that it's a different hall, like a different place where they do the wedding itself, the mass for the wedding itself, the blessing of the marriage itself. So there's just different factors that you should consider. There's also things like wedding bands. So this is the reason why you have to plan ahead of time. There's also things like wedding bands where they read it 3 times before, you know, you're actually good to get married. It's kind of like when they find out if someone else is already married to you, that kind of situation. I don't have to go into details here because not everyone is Catholic watching. I had a friend who he thought everything was good. He went to Nigeria and they're like, we're sorry, you can't get married because wedding bands were not done. So guys, you have to prepare and know what your church's requirement is, because every church has a different requirements. You have to be aware so that there's no excuses, there's no mistakes, and there's no disappointment. Another thing that you should be aware of, some churches will also say marriage counseling first, and classes, you have to complete that before you can get married. At least for us, we did. So there are things like that you should be aware of. So try to connect with your church or your mosque just so you know what the requirements are before you get married. Book your date fast, guys, because for some reason churches get booked pretty fast too. People are getting married every day. I know even when I went to get married, I saw some people are getting married, like people from their abroad are coming to get married. People are getting married every day. So if you don't book ahead of time, you might not have the date that you prefer any longer. Then you have to go to, because that's the available rather than the preferred. You will now take the available date. Another thing is you have to know about your choristers, like your choir, if there's any requirement, the kind of booklet, because we had a wedding booklet, so you have to be aware of that. So if you have to present that to the catechist, to the church, if there's any payments in church you have to make, all of those things. Bottom line is speak to your church, speak to your mosque, just so you're aware of what the requirements are before you get married. Also, like, you have to pick songs and things like that. Bottom line, you have to speak to your priest, you have to, all of those things, you have to do so many things. You have to do confessions. At least for us Catholics, you have to do all of those things. So you want to be aware of what it is that is required of you, especially if you don't live in the country. Like for me, I didn't live in Nigeria, so I had to do like my marriage counseling in Canada. So the Catholic Church here communicated with the Catholic Church in Nigeria. So we did the counseling here. We had our everything, we did everything, and it was then signed, documented, communicated to, Nigeria. So the things you have to be aware of, so you're not doing things last minute, and so it's not overwhelming for you guys. So I really hope I've been able to give you guys really good points in terms of venue, when you're picking a venue and when you're trying to pick a date in church, just so you don't get overwhelmed and you're aware of those things before the wedding. I really hope I've been able to help someone out there. You've been able to get points that will be helpful to you, and I'm wishing you a very beautiful beautiful wedding planning and wedding celebration. Congratulations there. I'll see you guys on the part 3 of the series, which will literally be on Ashwebi and bridesmaids. I really hope you guys enjoy this. Take care, guys, and I'll see you guys on my next video.